where you can find Chad if you have additional information about just his business and overall how he got where he got. Okay. So, I did a brief introduction. And let me say this, I'm really excited because number one, Chad went to school with me. We went to school together, PV&M HBCU
Yes,
outside of Houston,
ma'am.
Texas. And we were back in the late 90s.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah,
yes,
where things were actually pretty fun and amazing. And I'm going to be
yeah,
biased right now because I always think that when I went to school, it was the best time ever, right?
yeah, yeah. I gotta say, Uche, me, Don Green, of course, my frat brother, and I love Don to
Absolutely.
death, and
DG.
Gransberry, Natasha Gransberry, all of them. Man, we had a really tight engineering community,
Mhm.
and and I'm gonna tell you, you really stood out. You were one of the really smart ladies of the group, and Christina Titus and Stacy
Mhm.
Frazier and all of them.
Oh,
We
yeah.
had a really
Yes.
good group, man. And I just tell you what, Prairie View really prepared us. And I mean, not so much. I mean, of course, we got the core curriculum out of what we were doing at Prairie View, but just learning how to navigate and be professionals. And I mean, I look at everybody that left out of there with us, and everybody's doing extraordinary. And I really appreciate this opportunity.
Absolutely. It's interesting that you did say that. I had made that comment. Like, we had such an amazing class. So, I graduated as an ME and Chad electrical engineering. And it was always a competition between the two.
Yep.
But looking back and seeing everyone who graduated, it was amazing. And you're absolutely right. Being prepared, just entering the workplace and seeing how people that graduated with us, how they're doing so amazing now.
Yep.
And we got the foundation, and that's all it takes, right?
It's the foundation.
Is the
Yeah.
foundation. And pretty much what we're going to talk about is how that foundation helped propel you
Yeah.
to get into the position that you are in today. All right. So, first and foremost, for people who don't know about who you are, Chad, can you just give us, tell us, what would you like the audience to know about you?
Yeah, so I'll start out, but first of all, I always have to shout out to Fifth Ward, Houston, Texas. That's where I grew up. I grew up in very humble beginnings, and I use that for a reason, and we'll talk about it later. But I did attend Prairie View University, where I graduated. My BS was in electrical engineering. What I love most about my career and my experience is that I was able to take. I was a power guy, so I was in power engineering, and so I was able to migrate throughout the whole power system. So my first job out of college, I started. I was a nuclear engineer at the Comanche Peak Steam Station up in Glen Rose, Texas. And big shout out to Calvin Doucette, who was my mentor, who actually hired me. And I'll go into a little more details about him. So I was able to learn how to generate power using steam, uranium atoms, breaking them and making heat, and then making the 38, 69 kV and 138 kV. And then I was blessed to move on to Centerpoint Energy, where I actually was in the distribution business, the transmission business, of actually getting the power to customers, residential and commercial. At that level, we were at 35 kV, 12 kV, all the way down to grade. And then I would take like LeBron said, I would take my talents. And I take my talents over to the oil and gas industry. I worked for BP oil and gas for about 5 years. Then I went over to Shell, having the same role. I worked in the refinery and also worked in the chemical plant. And what I love most about that, I was an electrical engineer. However, when you work in the oil and gas industry, they expect more from you. So they really expect you to be like a systems engineer. So through that experience, I learned the process. I learned how those molecules work, how hydrocarbons moved around, what temperatures they need to be at. So I quickly became a chemical engineer, a mechanical engineer, electrical engineer, and also I learned how to do instrumentation and process. So I really enjoyed that. So and then later on, and throughout all of those opportunities, I also was a project manager. And during being a project manager, I was over $500 million of projects, and I learned the project, stage gates of projects, and how things work. And the reason I'm giving you all these experiences is because what I would do, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. So what I would do is I would take bits and pieces from each company I worked at, and I would see what were they doing great, what do they need to improve on. So I would take all of that stuff, and I knew, okay, this is what I'm gonna do when I own my own company. This is what from the actual processes, from how they ran meetings. all the way to how they treated employees. A big shout out to my employees. I know that they're Jamal. Thank you so much, and thank you for Taylor and the rest of the crew. But yeah, so I would take that and I wanted to treat employees a certain way, and we'll get more into that when we start talking about the entrepreneurship part of it.
I love it. So let me ask you, just going back, what made you decide to get into engineering?
So this is a crazy story. When I was a little kid, I'll never forget Christmas in Fifth Ward. We were getting ready for Christmas. The Christmas tree was lit real pretty, and I kept looking at the lights. And first of all, my grandfather used to work on television sets, and he would have a mirror in front of him, and he'd be working on the TVs in the back. And I was always interested in like, what is he doing? So he would slowly tell me what different components were. This is a resistor. This is a, as a kid, I heard the lingo, but I didn't know what the hell he was doing, to be honest. Then one day I remember sticking a pair of tweezers in a receptacle in an outlet. Oh my God. Yeah, when I tell you it lit me up, it melted my fingers together. And that was the first time I learned about how electricity worked. And luckily I survived that. But when I tell you the bubbles on my finger, it was, I was very inquisitive of it. So after that, I went to high school, and in high school I took a 2 year course, engineering and electronics, and I just fell in love with it. And matter of fact, one of my colleagues from middle school and high school recently contacted me and said, "Man, I'm proud of you." He was like, "You used to always say you wanted to be an engineer." This was in the 5th grade. I used to talk about this, and so that's what started me. And I just continued on with it. You know.
What advice would you give people who are interested in it but are afraid to start?
Yeah. So let me tell you, there are a lot of people, even with my kids. I tell them all the time, um, if engineering requires a lot of math, a lot of critical thinking, and a lot of times, especially in the society we live in now, people are a little bit, they don't want to have too much, the resistance, they don't want to do too much. And I get it sometimes, but what I tell kids, and I speak at a lot of schools, is make sure the career you pick helps you live the lifestyle you want to live. And it's okay, I don't knock anybody for working at McDonald's or doing whatever, but you can't want a Bentley working at McDonald's if that's what you want to do. And so don't avoid the engineering, don't avoid, a lot of times what I've learned, and I used to tutor kids, is it's not that you're not good at math, it's not that you're not good at engineering, it's that you don't like it. you know
Yes.
you got to find out how you can make yourself like it, and then you go from there with it.
I
So
love that. Thank you,
yeah.
everyone that's listening. If you're interested in it, it's never too late. Go ahead and get in there. It's not, and you're right. It is a lot of math, and I think that can be a little bit intimidating. However, just with anything else, as long as we continue to move forward on it, it becomes easier and easier.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
necessarily won't be a challenge, but it
Yeah.
becomes easier. So
Yeah.
you gave a couple of shout outs earlier about, people who helped you, mentors and stuff like that. But who are three most influential people that helped you see that you can take that leap and
Yeah.
start your own business?
So first and foremost, I was recruited from Prairie View to my first career, and I never used the term job. I never used the term job. My first career, I was recruited by a great man by the name of Calvin Doucette. Calvin recruited me to the Comanche Peak Steam Station. And when I tell you, this man took me and taught me how to be a professional. He taught me how to navigate the pitfalls at the plant. He taught me how to be a critical thinker. And to this day, Calvin and I are really good friends. He's a mentor to me. He lives in Cleveland, Texas, and it kind of spilled over into life. Like how to be a man, how to raise a family, it's just so much. And I talk to Calvin almost every day. I love this guy, and he's been the most influential persons in my life. Now I'm gonna tell you this. I group people in three groups: the green apple, the red apple, and the rotten apple. And we'll go into that a little bit more. And Calvin, he was more the red apple. The red apple was that person that's going to say, "Yeah, that's a great opportunity. Go start your business. I think it's great." But he's going to give you some hey, in this box, you need to do this, make sure you do that, make sure you do that. The green apple is usually the person that just go for it, go do what you do. They don't care.
Yeah.
But the rotten apple, boy, those are the ones you got to watch out for. They like, man, I wouldn't do that if I were you.
Yeah.
You're
Mhm.
gonna lose everything if you do that. So, but Calvin Doucette, he was the first. The second person I have to say is by far Michael Johnson. So when I first got in the oil and gas business,
Really?
Mike. Hey,
Yeah.
Mike's a living legend in the industry between Prairie View. Actually, he put me on the TV recruiting team for Shell. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah, he put me on the yeah. Shout out to Leslie. Leslie, she was also on the team. But yeah, Mike Johnson. So he grew up in the same neighborhood I grew up with, close to where I grew up. He grew up in Cashmere Gardens. And so what I liked about Mike is I was able to adapt. I knew how he grew up. He kind of grew up similar to me. So he wasn't somebody that was just saying, Chad, you could do this, you could do this. He actually did it himself. And so Mike at Shell, you can imagine, is a very challenging environment, very stressful environment. And Mike, to this day, he still recruits at Prairie View. He still teaches these kids how to navigate through the pitfalls, how to know when you're in trouble, like how to act in meetings. Very simple stuff he taught. And to this day, Mike Johnson is still one of my mentors. He's a pastor as well, so he's also my spiritual advisor when I go through when I'm stressed out. And so I talked to Mike yesterday actually, and so I'm saying that to say with these mentors that's another thing you want to have. You want to have mentors in your life that's not biased, but can give you critical advice and can also advise you on not only just your technical abilities, your life, but also life as a whole. You know, I think lastly, uh, the most influential. It's not a thing. It's a person. The way I grew up very, very poor. We didn't have a lot. And so I never really wanted for a lot. People ask me all the time, man, how do you leave $160,000, $70,000 job to go just work in engineering? Well, I never been a person of stuff. I still shop at Target, Walmart. I still now one day I'm gonna buy me a nice Bentley pretty soon, but that's because that's something I just happen to like. But because I'm not that excited about that stuff, it made it easier for me to leave corporate America and pursue my dream. I kept my cost of living real low, and so my upbringing humbled me and made me realize that stuff doesn't matter, and I don't need to have all the big stuff that forces me to stay in corporate America. You know.
Mm, that's actually pretty good. You're right because you built a certain lifestyle.
hmm
How long were you in corporate America?
21 years.
Really?
Yeah, 21 years. I came out in 99. I left Prairie View. But here's the thing. The whole time I was in corporate America, I always had an entrepreneurship. I owned a real estate company for 10 years during that time. So what I
Mm.
would do is I would set these companies up and I would put people in place to run these companies. And I was kind of like the quiet investor, so to say. So
Mhm.
I ran a successful real estate business. I'm sorry, real estate business. And then the last 3 years of corporate American oil and gas, I had started this engineering company, and I was slowly churning it through. You see, I'm showing off that TV ring, right? That TV.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's how I did that.
Wow. Okay, so that's actually a great segue into what made you decide to leave, considering. So I understand you mentioned that you're making high six figures, right? Let's just say that, and then um, you you had a certain lifestyle. What made you decide to leave that and be comfortable? What made
Yeah.
you decide to leave that comfortable life to take a risk and bet on yourself? Because that's the number one thing I have when I talk to people who have been in the workplace, especially if you're in the tech field. Listen, you're making money right now,
Yeah.
and the biggest thing that I hear is where they're comfortable and they don't want to bet on themselves. What
Yeah.
made you have enough faith to be able to do that?
Yeah. So So again, I wasn't money driven, and I'm gonna tell you, I'm only bringing up dollar figures because I want to give somebody a magnitude to where it makes what I'm doing, it makes what you want to do seem like, wow, what am I waiting on? So when you're making about $40,000 a year, I was making $46,000 a year when I started at the plant. I look back on it, I'm like, dang, I should have started then. Because when you're not making that much, you don't have a lot of responsibility. So you're like, hey, I'm gonna just go do it, right?
Mhm.
But when I left Shell, let me tell you the position I was in when I left Shell. I was probably around 160 a year. I was making 25, $30,000 bonus almost guaranteed every year. Uh, when I left the refinery, I was at a cush job. I was traveling all over the United States. I'd wake up one morning, I might go to Wisconsin and just travel on the company's dime. It was really easy for me, but I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. And I was that kid in middle school, and everybody who's watching this probably remember in middle school. I was a kid selling Snickers and Skittles and M&Ms, and I wasn't just selling it for the money. I literally had a pad that I kept up with. I was like inventory, cash flow. I was keeping up with all of that. And what's crazy, Uche, I'm gonna tell you again. I grew up poor. I'd have $300 or $400 in my pocket at school in the fifth grade, but I'd still be on free lunch. I still had free breakfast. I had my little card. Oh yeah. So you know, so one thing I do have to give a shout out to at the time, the wife I was with, and this is important. Your spouse got to be on board. So my wife, she was okay with me just leaving that and just because we had an agreement that once I got her through nursing school, then I would turn around and do my thing. And she was it was so it's kind of like uh, an agreement, and that was the thing. But I'm gonna tell you this: corporate America changed a lot over the 20-year period. And what happened with engineering for me when I was in corporate America, I realized was that the it was at first it was like 80% of the work. I love going in the plant. I love resolving issues. I love fixing stuff. I love fixing motors and resolving stuff. What happened was it flipped at some point to where it was more political. It was like, man, it became 90% red tape and politics versus 10% of just getting the job done. And I just didn't really like that. And then also, to be absolutely honest with you, uh, I never saw a lot of people like me moving up in these companies, you know. And if they did have somebody that looked like me that moved up in the company, they were probably homegrown. They were in the company for years, and it was just different. And so it was easy for me to leave. And then I had another mentor by the name of Donald Wright, who also was doing MEP engineering, and he was mentoring me on getting my business. And he would be straight blunt. He would say, "Man, leave that job now."
Yeah.
Straight blunt with me, because he had been doing it for a while. And a lot of the fear that people have is they're gonna lose stuff. They're gonna the fear of we've always been trained to get a paycheck every 2 weeks. We've been trained to go to the job, and I'm gonna tell you, it was scary for me at first. I would wake up some mornings and I'll be like, what the hell am I doing? Like, let me go back and get on this job. Because you're not getting a paycheck 2 weeks. You know, sometimes, like, there have been times that I haven't gotten any money coming in a month. But the next month I'd get enough money coming in cash flow wise for 6 months.
Mhm.
And see, the other thing about being an entrepreneur, at one point I had twelve employees that I was responsible for their payroll. So not only am I worried about surviving, I got to make sure that I'm giving these people the lifestyle because I got them to come work for us. And so, yeah, that was it. That was my motivation. That's why I left. I couldn't do it no more, and I actually can't see myself ever going back.
Yeah. So two things. One, I was so happy when I saw that when you were posting on the social media platform that's for professionals that you were hiring.
Yeah.
I was like, yes, that's what I'm talking about. So that was exciting for me to even see that. So everyone listening, so what I was telling Chad was that when he made the announcement that he was starting his own business years ago, that I've been following him ever since because I was just like, Wow, that's awesome. And really, to be honest with you, sort of envious because I was still in corporate when you took that leap to start
Yeah,
your own thing, and I was
yeah,
like, "What you waiting on, New Jay? You need to start this." So that's the first thing. But the second thing that I love hearing you say is that um, it became more political, and the higher you go, that's what really
by
normally
far.
happens. You find yourself doing less engineering and really more about um, who you following, who you like, who you got to talk to today.
Yeah,
Red tape. Probably, we used to laugh and call it PowerPoint engineering 101, where you're doing a lot of briefs all the time.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm gonna tell you, I found myself like one thing I learned from Mike Johnson when I was at Shell. I learned to be a critical thinker, and I learned how to think fast. See, not only being a critical thinker in oil and gas, you had to actually be very fast at making quick decisions. Like, we're going to replace this motor, we're going to do this. And you have to be very quick at that. And I used to be in front of 20, 15 people, 15, 20 people, giving them my dissertation as to how we're going to resolve this problem. You had to come up with options, scenarios real quick. And what I noticed, I was like, man, when one person got up there and described how we should do stuff, I was like, man, they just sat down and it was like Jay-Z with the finale entourage type. They would clap. And then when I would get there, I would be like, man, I would get so many questions. I would be questioned. I would be, and I'm gonna tell you, like, the great question when people used to say, "Wow, Chad, you're a really smart guy," I really took offense to that. Like,
Mhm.
what do you expect? Like, I'm in a position of making decisions, but you're saying I'm a smart guy as if you didn't expect that. And then you get the one, what school you went to? Maybe that was a shout out to Prairie View, but most of the time I saw that as, so I just, and I'm not saying these were not great companies I work for, but some of the people there, they didn't have a lot of expectation with us. And so I started saying to myself, you know what? If I can't have the environment and be the leader that I want to be, I'm going to create my own opportunity to where I can be the leader I want to be and treat people that work for me. And I don't say work for me, my team, with the utmost respect. And anybody that works for me, they'll tell you right now that I care about them. I want them to have work-life balance. Hell, we go to lunch. We go bowling for lunch sometimes. We go to Top Golf. I make sure we do something once a month to show them I appreciate what they're doing. And it ain't a bunch of fluff. It's real, you know. So yeah,
I love that. Yeah, and just to reaffirm, confirm, because he's always they posted, and I'm always like, "Hey, they're having a good time. He hiring
mhm.
like you
Yeah, I get that one a lot. Y'all heard, but
having a great time."
yeah,
Um,
we're gonna take the team on a we're gonna take the team to Cancun, or we're gonna take them, somewhere for about 3 or 4 days, a cruise or something. We're not gonna do no work for a week, and it's
mm,
all company paid, and we just gonna hang out. So
I love it. So just a note for those who are watching, especially for anyone who um, really people of color, especially in the engineering and corporate field, just to let you know you're not alone. What Chad is talking about is what a lot of people have experienced a lot. The higher they go up, they do get those type of questions. What school you went to? I got it all the time. Um, how did you learn this? Who did you work for?
mhm,
So it's a normal thing, but I think the biggest thing is that making sure that you bet on yourself. I was actually talking, and when you say this, it just reminds me of I was talking to someone yesterday, and he was complaining because he felt like he wasn't getting the recognition he deserved at the
mhm,
company.
mhm.
And my comment to him was, well, what would that look like? And he said, well, I'm doing all this amazing stuff, but they're only focused on them. And I said, well, because that's what they're going to be.
Yeah,
It was a small company that grew,
yeah,
right? So I said, so the only way you want to gain the recognition that you feel like you deserve is that you're going to have to create your own and
yeah,
not depend on someone else to give you that. And
yeah,
I think that's where a lot of things goes wrong, especially when we're working. And I'm just going to say in the corporate space is that, and I'm going to say that was me too, is expecting validation because I'm working my butt off,
mhm,
not knowing
mhm.
I would never get what I'm looking for
Yeah, right. So the validation, and I went through that. The validation, at the end of the day, the validation came from me.
That's
I would look at systems and see how stuff was, and I learned this from Mike. I would look at how stuff was inefficient, and I would say, you know what, I'm gonna make this more efficient, or I'm gonna try to figure this out. I'm gonna recreate. I'm gonna create something different, and it has my name on it. So whenever they need to support whatever was created, they had to call me. Oh, Chad, I didn't need validation from anybody. I got to that point where I didn't need it. I understand sometimes you want to be rewarded or acknowledged. But sometimes you just got to go into the game expecting I'm not gonna get that. But okay,
and that's what it is. That's the
yeah.
difference.
And my
So
validation is yeah, I'm trying. My validation is from God. That's I'm
well,
not
that's
gonna.
that mindset shift, though.
Yeah, yeah.
That's that mindset shift that you have to have.
Yeah.
Now, so Chad, I saw that you had announced that your firms graduated from the Goldman Sachs 10K SB program. How was that? Because I was like, wait a minute, you had me go Google up this 12-week
Uh,
program.
you Googled it up,
I did. Again,
man.
I follow. Listen, I'm telling you, I was when I say I follow because I was so elated and
Yeah,
impressed with
yeah.
what
So
you're doing.
I was in a bunch of programs. I was in the Capital One Getting Down to Business program. It was great. We won awards there. I was in a program with Kirby John Caldwell's church that they had. It's still going on. It's the construction. I forget the exact name of it. It was really good. I was in a lot of these programs, but when I got into this Goldman Sachs, I'm telling you right now, they taught us how to look at P&L statements, how to look at balance sheets, how to understand cash flow. Now, me being a engineer and liking math and all that, that don't necessarily mean I like financials.
Yeah,
And I'm telling you, I didn't understand the financials of my business. I just got a check, took it to the bank, right, paid payroll, and that was that. But they first taught me how to look at forecasting, how to look at how to bring my revenue up, or if my revenue stayed the same, how do I make more profits by cutting down some of my some of the debts and some of the expenses, that kind of thing. They had worksheets. They had a lot of classes we had to take. I mean, I'm gonna tell you, that period of time I was in that program, I thought I was in college again in a very condensed situation. You had homework assignments, you had group assignments, you had to make phone calls, you had to meet with people. Some of the other stuff they made us do is they made us create a growth opportunity. And so my growth opportunity was for my business to expand into the cannabis growth facility, doing MEP for those. And so I was like,
I
man,
saw that.
yeah,
I
you
saw
saw that. So I was like, man, I ain't never heard of this. I ain't never done that. But it makes you think. And then looked at the numbers and all that stuff. And then I said, man, if I get into this segment, I'll make another $40,000 a year in revenue the first year. And so it came to fruition. And there was other things. And one of the other growth plans that we're going into, we do drawings all day. We put equipment on these drawings and create bill of materials to give to the contractor to go buy to build these big buildings that we're doing. You're gonna see right now it's source load engineering and consulting. You're gonna see pretty soon source load distribution where we're selling equipment, transformers, mechanical HVAC, and all that stuff. So they helped us create those opportunities and put it on paper. The other thing they taught us about the elevator pitch and doing business plans. So when you go to an investor and you get on the elevator, and that's why they call it that, you don't have 45 minutes to tell them what you do and how much money you want, all of that. It taught us how to get that out very quick, very quick. And one of the biggest things that they taught us and they brought us through and walked us through is creating a SWOT. Creating a SWOT, you know what I'm saying? And that's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. I look at my SWOT every quarter now. Like I look at the competitors, the other MEP firms in the industry. I look at what our strengths are, and I'm very transparent with my weakness. One thing about me, if there's something I'm weak in, I'm gonna go out there and hire somebody that's stronger in that area for me. Period. And I'm not gonna over exaggerate my strengths. And I just keep up with that stuff. And so Goldman Sachs, uh, they really, really taught us a lot, and I think I excelled in that program. And they also awarded me or made me an ambassador and of my cohort, which means I'm the person that keeps us together, our cohort, and works with other ambassadors across the nation. They just came from Washington. The whole group went up there, and it was a nationwide thing. And Goldman Sachs, big shout out to HEC and the folks at the Goldman Sachs. They are really preparing people, and they don't just once you leave the program, they don't just leave you. So every 18 months, we have to give them a update where we are, how many people we've hired, how's our revenue doing, and every year that revenue is going exactly, if not higher than what we forecast it to be per
How
quarter.
many people did you hire after you graduated from that program?
So when I got in the program, I had zero people,
Really?
zero. It was me and a contractor when I got into the program. When I left the program, I had 10 employees. I had a huge office space. I had I had HR people. I got Chad had people. Yeah. 'Cause
Yeah.
when you first get in business, they call it 19 hats that you wear, marketing and all this other stuff you have to do. I slowly started giving that up, giving that out to other people. Right now, I don't do my marketing. Everything you see on social media that's popping up for me, I have people that take care of that for me. I
Yeah.
don't deal with that anymore. Not that I'm some big time, but it's one of the things that I take off my plate
Yeah.
so that I can eat the meat and potatoes.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, my goal is to not work in the process. I want to get to a point where I'm working on the process.
That's right. That's the CEO.
That's
That's
it. That's
that's
it.
the CEO. That's the goal. That's the plan. Hey, listen, everyone who's on here watching, make sure you put questions that you want to ask for. But this is actually for everyone on here who is in the entrepreneurship or aspiring to be one. Chad is actually dropping a lot of great nuggets and information. And please, take notes, share, like, comment. We want to make sure that you are getting the information you need so that you can go to the next level in your program. One of the biggest things that I just heard recently by going into that program is that it was transformative. It was transformative to go as an entrepreneur with one contract and come out as a CEO of a small business, as a small business owner. It was transformative. So, all right. So I see all these certifications:
Hmm.
SBA, DBE, MBE, and many others. What? Okay. How has these certifications impacted your business?
So, so before I answer that, I want to say the biggest thing is getting your professional engineering license is important. I'm currently licensed in Tampa. Well, we have in Florida, we have an office in Tampa, Louisiana, Texas, and I'm doing New Mexico, and I'm also in Alabama. So that's important. But the certifications, the MBE is important. Uh, there's projects right now. It could be a $10 million project where in that project they have to give 27 to I think it's 32% of the revenues in that particular discipline to a minority. So why would I leave that on the table? Why would not, you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
so we're certified with the city of Houston, Harris County, TxDOT, everywhere. Now, I'll be honest and tell you, my business model, I spend about 10% of my business development in those areas. And I'll tell you why. A lot of times when you bid on these projects, you're going to spend between four and $10,000 just putting together your response to the RFQs. And sometimes you're not going to get it. And I'll tell you what, sometimes we've competed with some of the biggest engineering firms in Houston. And I'm gonna tell you, that's why I don't use the word failure. I don't believe in the word fail. We have not won a bid in about 3 years, right? But we've came in second, third place out of a list of 20 people. And I'm talking about some big major firms, Jacobs Engineering, LJA. I'm talking about some big firms for us to even be in the room. And so what I do is I just continue to stay in the conversation because at some point, one of those firms are not going to turn something in or so the flip side of it is what you do is you merge with those firms and you call them up and say, hey, I'll be a subprime, and you start getting work. We have plenty of projects with the city of Houston, but
Mm,
we're subprimes. And what I'm doing with that is I'm slowly putting these nuggets and these tools in this toolbox. So one day when I say, well, hell, we've been doing this for years anyway. So we want that opportunity. I've done some work at Prairie View, which I'm very, very proud of. So we're on the books with Prairie View. We're on the books with the city of Houston. We just did a project with HPD. We do a lot of stuff with their fleet maintenance and fleet stuff. And so I, it's very important to get that. It's
mm.
very important to get that MBE, the DBE. We have it all. And what's crazy is the process is so simple. Once you get it with the city of Houston, it just gives you all the rest of them. You just got to keep renewing and keep it up. So
Mhm. Okay. So, how did your company shift within the last 2 years?
yeah. So I'm gonna tell you that pandemic caught us slipping. You know,
What does that mean? Caught you slipping? What
man,
does that
let me
mean?
tell you, I'm gonna tell you, of course, nobody anticipated this. Nobody expected that. And so what happened was we were just kind of trucking along and we were doing well. And then all of a sudden, I had 2 or 3 employees that had COVID. And I'm like,
Mm,
shoot, how do we do this? And I'm
mhm.
gonna tell you, for a small business, sending people to work from home is expensive. You
Why
have
is
you have to get laptop. You have to make sure they have internet. You have to make sure that,
that?
even VPN and into your network to get the drawings that they need. That's expensive. There was a lot of expense with it, and I'm gonna tell you the other expense. At first, when the pandemic hit, you had to pay employees no matter what they were at home because they didn't know how the HIPAA laws and all that stuff worked. Because I'll be honest, I had a couple of employees that claimed they had COVID and they didn't, but I had to pay them, and it was tough. But what I did was we pivoted. We worked from home. We did some things from home. We got a lot of systems in place to be more efficient, to get things done faster and more robust in the environment we were in. And I'll tell you, the last 2 years of my business, we made more money per year than we did the 3 years previous to that. We
How
had
was
our
that?
best. We had absolutely our best year during COVID. I
And I
can't
hear
put my.
that a lot, but how was that? How did that happen?
I think what it was this: people that are risk takers, that are business owners, that are. What happens is if someone closed their restaurant down and say, "Man, this COVID is killing me," that risk taker is going to come in and say, "You know what? That restaurant already has the HVAC systems in it, the hood systems in it. It has everything in place I need to open my restaurant that I wanted to." So these people would take these chances and these risks and say, "You know what? I'm gonna get that restaurant the way it is, or that commercial building space the way it is, and I'm gonna start now because if I start now, by the time I open it up,
It's
the
facts.
pandemic will be over with." And so I knew that, and so that was my strategy, and that was
Mm.
also my sales pitch. I'm like, man, by the time you build this restaurant, you're gonna be the only guy in town,
Mm.
selling soul food or whatever. So we did a bunch of Popeyes restaurants during that time. We did we did a bunch of projects during that period. I think we did over 200 and some projects, 250. Our average was like 180. We did like 250 projects during the pandemic.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Wow. You
Uh,
heard it. Opportunity exists in the midst of chaos.
yeah. Most millionaires are made during those type of opportunities. I mean,
You know
those.
what they were saying that during the last 2 years, I think in the US alone, maybe 11, 12, 100,000 millionaires are made in the
Hmm.
US alone.
Hmm.
And I was like, yeah, I could see that. It was going crazy with all the digital products and all that stuff. I said, I can see
Yeah.
that. All right. So, what advice would you give people who are still working and want to start their own business?
So the first thing I would say is take out a piece of paper, write this down. What it took for me to finally leave was I created a list, a checklist. When this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened, I'm out. No matter what. I promised myself, no matter what. So some of the things on that list I had was I was slowly paying off debt. Them bonuses I was getting for Shell, I wasn't going out there buying new cars and getting bigger houses. Now I did buy a bigger house in Lake Olympia, and I was like, God dang, I shouldn't have done that. But it was okay. It still fit in the, what we were doing. But I paid some debt off. At some point, I took the Dave Ramsey course, cut up 12 credit cards. When I cut those cards up, that was one checkbox. The other thing was I started to bring my overhead, cost of living, and all that stuff down because I wanted to get to a point where, and this is the other thing I was competing with. You know how these oil and gas companies work. You know how these industries work. They'll lay you off at any given time.
Yeah.
So I would tell somebody, even if you're not going to start a business, you still need to put that strategy in place because one day you'll show up to work and that job won't be there. Remember that book, Who Moved My Cheese?
Yes.
They will move that cheese in a heartbeat because you just, when they get ready to lay people off and all that, they're not sitting there talking about, well, Chad's a great employee. They're looking at the numbers. How much do we pay him? What's his total benefit package? What, so I was already like keen in on that, and so that's one thing I would tell people to do. The other thing is if you have a spouse or somebody, make sure they know, what you're planning to do. Bring them in on what you're planning to do. The other thing, a lot of people say, don't tell, I call them Slater haters. That's what I called them back when I was coming out. They say, don't tell other people your ideas and what you're planning to do. Well, I think the opposite. Because people who are against what you're trying to do, if you tell them, hey, I'm thinking about doing this in a certain way, just being nice, like you just want to start a conversation with them, they're going to help you with the cons. You already know the pros.
That's a good point.
Yeah, so they're going to sit there, man, what about medical benefits? What about this? When they would say all of that, I would write it down. And that became a part of my checklist.
Ooh.
Because one of the biggest things was, man, you're not going to have any health benefits. Thank you for telling me that. That's that red apple. That's that rotten apple I was telling you about earlier. So what I would do, I would go research medical benefits. And it's not as bad as people think. Because when you got a bunch of engineering firms as a group in a group plan, you might get cheaper insurance than your company. And that's how I was able to give benefits to my faculty. That's why we go to Washington. That's why we get on buses to go there to fight for that kind of stuff. And so create that checklist, do those things, and I'm telling you, this is how I walked out of Shell. The day before I left Shell, I had moved to another part of Shell. And I never forget, my manager at that time, and the best experience I've had in corporate America was when my manager was female. Whenever I had a female manager and one other manager I had that was a male, it seemed like I didn't deal with a lot of the, discrimination type stuff because they were a minority as well. And so she was like, hey, Chad, we really think you're undervalued. And in the next couple of weeks or so, we're going to try to move you into another grade, which, was a grade 3. And I was excited. But the whole time she was telling me that in my mind, I was like, well, what you don't know is you're about to get this 2 weeks notice tomorrow. So I never forget. She told me that the next day, the bonuses were coming out. And I called HR and I say, how long do I need to work up to qualify for my bonus? They were like, well, Chad, you have to be here February 1st, at least until February 1st. February 2nd, they got my 2 week notice and I left.
Wow.
Yep. I took the money I had with that. I invested some of it. It took me $5,000 to start my business. That's what I used in knowledge.
Y'all, you heard. Make sure you write that down. I love that. I never thought about that in terms of the people who have all the negative stuff. They do identify a lot of things that you may not think about.
I need to pay some of my enemies that help me.
No, that's actually not a bad idea. I've never, we were taught not to tell anybody anything, and that has never served us good anyway.
Yeah.
So you wondering, like, how come I'm not doing this? Well, you never told anybody you wanted to do it, right? So that was something that was passed down. But that's actually, Y'all heard that. Now that's great
I
information.
mean, it's some stuff you keep close to the hip, but at the end of the day, you also can be encouraging somebody because those people that were naysayers back then, 4 or 5 years ago, I've been doing this for 5 years. I've been from corporate America for 3 years. You
Mhm.
may have inspired them. Matter of fact, one of my friends called me. We worked at BP together. So the first time I want to start an engineering company, I never forget. It was going to be called Mace Engineering. It was Michael, Adam, Chad, and Eric. That's how we started. I was like, man, I got an idea. So we would always meet for lunch, and none of those guys ended up leaving with me. You know, but recently the he just left Exxon. He was making a lot of money, not just about money, but his desire and what he wanted to do for his family. In the same conversations we having right now, he and I had that conversation. He called me. I'm like, dude, you got to do it because here's the thing. At the end of the day, number one, there's no such thing as failure because you've already succeeded because you've done something that most people won't do, right?
That's
And
true.
number two, I never wanted to be 80, 90 years old at a retirement home thinking, dang, I should have went out there and tried
That's
that.
exactly right. Mhm.
Just do it. I'm the Nike man. I don't wear Nike. I'm Adidas man, but now I'm the Nike man. Just do it.
Right,
That's
right,
it.
right.
It's
It's
like
that.
it's like it's like when you it's like when people say, "Well, I'm about to have a baby, but they're expensive." You can never be financially ready for a child.
Yes. You know what though? The people that actually do end up leaving are the ones who they are absolutely fed up.
Yeah,
It has to get to a point
yeah,
where no matter what, right? That's it. Well,
yeah,
what I like to tell people is what usually happens is when you've made your decision, that's when the golden handcuffs come in because they be like, "Yo, wait a minute, how
yeah,
about we give you this?" And you're like,
yeah, yeah,
"Oh no,
yeah,
no, 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 no."
yeah, yeah. And I look, I I used to tell people I love Shell. I love the job. I love BP. I love all the companies I work for. I love what I was doing. I mean, the politics came into play. I never left my job, my corporate job, because I was frustrated. Yeah, of course I had those days. I never left because I had a problem with them. And that's the thing you can never think about starting a business because you mad at where you are at. You're leaving that place because you desire to do something different for you.
Yep.
And that's ultimately why I left. And I'm gonna tell you this: if you're making six figures and you live a certain lifestyle and you want to go start your own business, if money is your driving force, don't do it. Because your first year in business, you're not gonna be making what you were making there. You're not gonna live the same way. And we can help you get through that. But if you money driven, it ain't gonna work out at the beginning.
Let me tell you, because I was like, I don't know how long I can do this.
Yeah,
this is
yeah,
this is difficult. They said it's gonna be a little bit easier, but you got to believe in yourself. Okay, so um, the next question in chat is burnout for leaders.
yeah.
What is your advice for helping leaders reduce burnout? Because that
Woo.
is the biggest thing, right?
Yeah.
Entrepreneurs, small business owners, even in the corporate space, but in as an entrepreneur and small business owner, what advice would you give? Because we're not
Yeah.
trying to hustle, because right, everybody's like, don't go hustling. We need work. We need well-being. So, what would
Hmm.
your advice be for that?
Yeah. I'll be honest. I've burned out probably. I've honestly felt like I burnt out 3 times so far. I keep up with that too. I have a journal where I keep up with
You
that.
mean this year?
No, the whole time I've been doing it.
Okay.
Yeah. And burnout's gonna happen. See, that's the key. Is when you anticipate something's gonna happen and you plan for it. When it happens, you're like, okay, here it is. There it is. There it is right there. But when you think it's never gonna happen to you, like when I started this engineering firm, I used to have people tell me, "What if you get sued?" Duh. I've already incorporated that is possible. Burger King gets sued, McDonald's gets sued. How
Right.
are you not gonna start a business because you scared you're gonna get sued? It happens. That's why you have insurance. That's why you have professional insurance. But but yeah, burnout happens. So what I do to help out with burnout, I'm telling you, this might sound crazy and bass apples. Sometimes I'll wake up and it'll be like a Wednesday, and I'm like, you know what? I think I'm gonna load my car with my fishing rods and I'm gonna go to Galveston and go fishing.
Mm.
And the good thing I got good leaders in place, Jamal and Taylor and the people at the team at the office. I'll just call them up and say, hey, I'm not gonna make it today. I'm gonna go fishing, whatever. And I'm able to do that and not look like, oh, he's just slacking, because I allow them to do the same thing. If you need a mental day, take a mental day, because they
Mm.
probably can just burn out just like I am. So
Mm.
I do a lot of self help stuff, burnout. Uh, I see a therapist every Friday,
Mm.
for my mental health. And you see me posting about that. It's very important. I deal with a lot. I deal with family stuff. I deal with stuff at the office. I deal with other. Whenever we go in the room at some of these big corporations that we do projects for, they don't even know I'm the CEO. They don't even know I'm the owner. I'll sit there and take notes like I'm the admin or something.
Mhm.
And but the pressure I get from some of these big companies and these questions I deal with a lot. And so I do that, and I go golfing. I just try to do a lot of stuff to self care. And the key thing that I do is when I travel. You probably seen me. I went to London recently, and I didn't go to London. I went downtown London. I went to Amsterdam, but I went to where the people are, the actual people. I went to a place where people were living in one bedroom homes, and they had little bitty cars, and they were just enjoying life. And the other thing I do is I go back to my neighborhood. I go buy groceries for people in my neighborhood and all that. The reason I do that is because it brings me back to where I came from. And no matter what stress I'm sitting here stressing about, I can
Mhm.
always go back to that and be more stressed out, right? So it helps me recharge. It helps me realize, man, I'm further along than I was before.
That's right.
So just be cool and let it go, right?
No, thank you for sharing that. Because the next question was, how do you practice self care? Thank you for your transparency and honesty. A lot of times we do not do that, and the best thing is making sure that we take care of ourselves. Because if we can't take care of ourselves, we won't have a company to begin with anyway.
That's correct.
It won't be sustainable. All right. So, how can listeners find you online? How would you like for everyone to get in contact with you if they
Well,
have questions, or they want to get an autograph or something? How can they get in contact with you?
look, I'm an open book. A lot of my clients have my cell phone number. I mean, they call me all day, but I'm okay with that because I like to educate people. Everything about us is source to load. That's SOURCE, the number two, LOAD, source to load. Whether it's on Instagram, Facebook, y'all can look us up there. Give us a call. Now, let me tell you something about my logo and source to load. It's from an electrical standpoint, right? You have a lamp, you plug it up. The lamp is the lamp, the load, the source is the way you plug it up. But my actual logo and everything about that has a very religious and spiritual background. Because without that source, I'm just a load. And you know
Mm,
how a circuit works. You start off from that source, you go through all that resistance and all that trouble in life, and you come right on back to that source. You always go back to that source. And a matter of fact, I'm writing a book right now. It's called Power. The circuit of life is based on source to load, and I'm using an analogy of electrical engineering, and I'm comparing that to life. When that book come out, you guys gonna love it. I promise you.
when do you think think that might come out? It's going to be later on this year, or early next year.
I'm trying to make it come out on my birthday, November 25th.
Okay, all right, very good. I hope I get a copy.
You will get it. Of course, you're gonna get a copy.
Want to read that. All right. Is there anything else that you would like our listeners to know before we go?
Yeah. Before we go, I do want to say, if we didn't learn anything from the pandemic, we learned that life is very, very short. We've seen a lot of people lose their lives. We've seen a lot of people get divorced. We've seen a lot of relationships and friendships broken. Uh, there are a lot of people sitting in prison right now wish they had an opportunity to be free to start a business, no matter what it is. So I'm saying that to say life is too short to be at a stressful job, to not do something for yourself. You know, you have your limbs, you wake up every day, you breathe every day. I'm not telling somebody to walk to their job and quit tomorrow. Have a plan. And the other thing about having a plan, one thing about me, I never have a plan B. I don't do plan Bs. I have a plan A and I have a lot of strategies and pivots. That's it. Because when you have a plan B, sometimes you lean on that and you never finish the goal.
That's right.
So life is short. Go out there and do it. Be the Nike person. Just do
Just
it.
do it. All right, Chad, thank you so much. This was amazing. Definitely appreciate you. Chad, I'm going to take you off and I'll be right back. Okay.
All right. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. This is awesome. So everyone, thank you for coming out and having such a great session. Again, you will see in where I have all the information on how to get in contact with Chad, and definitely how you can start having your own business. So one of the big things that we do here at the Business Accelerator program, it is for the working professionals who are ready to start a 6-figure side business while they're working a 9-to-5 and be able to do that with ease and without the stress. One of the main things, our mission is to reach and teach 100,000 working professionals so that they can start a side business and become financially independent, secure financial freedom, and most important, be in control of your well-being. We definitely know that the more that we are coming into the workplace, and if we don't have flexibility, we understand that we don't have control. And if you really want an opportunity where no one is controlling how much you can make or how you desire your life to live, you want to start today. And all that link information is called the Business Accelerator System. And if you have any more additional questions, you can definitely set up a call with us. That link will be in the comments. And everyone have a great evening, have a great night, and be blessed.